Hey, what's up guys? My name is Josh and today we're going to be talking about the TIN Hi-Fi T3s. Now I've already reviewed the T2s, love that headphone. If you haven't seen the review, you definitely should. It's a great headphone. And today we're going to be talking about whether the T3 is equally worth it. Now, if you've been keeping up with the channel, you know that I also have the T2 Pros here, which I'm not going to be doing a dedicated review. And I'll talk more about that in the comparison I have between the T2, the T2 Pro, and the T3 that will be coming out in a few days. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into the T3. Actually, really quick, I want to thank my buddy Israel for lending this to me to review. So first, we're going to go ahead and cover build quality, and similar to the T2, it's amazing. Like for the price, it can't really get much better. This one actually does not have a twisted cable like the T2 has. It actually has a dedicated braided cable, and it's actually a little bit thicker and kind of squared off the braids. It's got this square feeling to it. There's kind of like four corners to it. It's kind of squishy, and to be honest with you, I love this cable. Like, I absolutely love it. The only thing I don't really love about it, and I wish they would have stuck with the method that they use with the T2, is actually put kind of a stiffer plastic coating around the part that goes around your ear that kind of forces it into a specific shape. I wish they had let it kind of free flow like the rest of this cable, just so that it's, you know, it would just kind of be a little bit more comfortable for me, in my opinion, and would fit more ears more easily. They didn't choose to do that, and it's not uncomfortable. I just think that it could have been optimized a little bit better. And those of you who don't want to wear it over your ear, you can wear it down. You can with the T2, but not really so much with the T3, which is this cable, which seems to be about 3 feet-ish, terminates through a 3.5 millimeter, no surprise there. And the earbuds themselves are made of metal, and they are cold at first, but they usually warm up by body heat after about 30 seconds to a minute, and they get really comfortable after that. And regarding the fit and finish and the whole package of experiencing this headphone, it's extraordinarily comfortable. I like the TIN Hi-Fi stuff a lot. Now this one, of course, does come with a case as well. It's actually slightly bigger than the T2 cases. This one will not fit in a pocket, but will fit in a backpack. But I don't know, it's more of a display case than kind of like a makeshift carry case like the other one I think could be used for. This one's a little bit too big. All right, now what you need to drive this is just about anything you've got. Any modern phone will be able to drive this. Any modern laptop will be able to drive this in terms of kind of sound quality. I didn't really notice much of a benefit to going into higher end amps. And I have high end amps like the Sony, what is it? The ZH-1ES here. I can't, too many letters in that model name. The HDV 820, my THX 789. Didn't really notice much other than just pure raw power output. But honestly, I kept this usually in the ballpark of 50% on my iPhone to about 75% turned up. So it's a pretty efficient headphone that will work off just about anything. All right, so what is the actual sound quality like? It's mostly kind of mid and lower treble forward. So you're gonna be getting lots of vocal notes in here, lots of crispy little treble notes. This does suffer from one of the same issues that the T2 suffers with, which I'll talk about in just a second. And overall, you're getting kind of a more mid-range focused sound, similar to the T2. All right, so some more notes on the treble here. It is crisp, it's fairly clear, and again, we're gonna be judging this off price range, not the totality of performance at any price, of course, just like most of my other reviews. I find the treble is a little bit more forward than I personally would prefer. It's a little bit more harsh in some categories, especially the S range, and that's the factor that was similar between this and the T2, is they both have a bit of sibilance. The sibilance on the T2 was definitely managed well by not being loud in volume. This one is a little bit more forward in volume. Now, it's not the worst sibilance I've ever heard on any headphone, not by a long shot, but it was noticeable, and it was a little bit of a downside to this headphone, and it was a constant reoccurring problem for me. That being said, similar to the T2, I don't really think it's enough of a hindrance not to buy this if you like everything else that it has. It's not gonna have perfect performance there, but if you like kind of the more forward treble performance that this offers, gives you that really crispy feeling. It's great for like anything acoustic, anything strings. These play really nicely. Now, mid-range for these is very nice as well. It can occasionally get a little bit overpowered by that treble performance, but you know, it's somewhat well balanced. I just wish that, you know, the entirety of the treble is brought down like 2 or 3 dB. Like, it's just a little bit overpowering for me. But mid-range performance, nonetheless, if you isolate that, is very, very good. So you got this great body for instrumental music. and singers. And I want to focus on singers here because that's something that this is quite good at for the price. So the vocalists that I think the T3 displays best are really deep male vocals. I mean, if you got a really deep female, that's fine too, but mostly deep vocalists. And I'm talking like really deep, like Tim Faust, Avi Kaplan levels of deep. Actually, on a side note, if you've heard their song Ring of Fire by Home Free, those are two of the best bass singers in the business, and they are incredible. And you're probably going to go listen to that song and be like, oh, this is normal. But pay attention to the underlying bass note, like the bass track that's in that song. That's all vocals, man. Like they're really good. And then Tim Faust, right at the very last 10 seconds of the song, perfect. But when it comes to the performance of this headphone, that's where it really shines, is the texturization of those vocalists. Now the kind of middle of mid-range, this displays fairly well. It's not extremely forward. It's close enough to give you a decent level of separation, but not, massively separated. Like you're not going to be getting, I guess like 6xx levels of separation there, but it's very good. And overall vocal performance is pretty warm. When you get into the upper regions of vocals, when you get into those higher female ranges, these can sound a little bit thin there. They don't quite develop the body up there, but I'm being a little bit picky here. And I think for the price, it's great performance. I wish there was a little bit more punch up there, but nonetheless, very, very good and very clear. All right, so bass response. This is gonna be similar to the T2 where it's there, but it's not like the main reason to buy this headphone. If you're gonna look at purchasing this, I would look for mid-range and treble performance, and bass response would be an afterthought for you. There's gonna be a lot more IEMs that have a lot more bass at the same price range, and the bass response here is good. It's not bad by any means. Don't mean it to sound like that. It's just not a huge selling point of this headphone. And it does play fairly cleanly. So again, it's got that kind of mid-range forward performance. So this is gonna be great for a lot of vocalists and a lot of the acoustic music that happens in the mid-range frequency band. All right, when it comes to imaging and soundstage, imaging is pretty good. It does suffer from a term that I actually learned from Metal 571 in his LCD1 video, which is blobs. And the way that he kind of described the Sennheiser 6 series was like 3 blobs of sound. So you've got kind of forward or center, and then kind of sounds on the right, sounds on the left. And this suffers from like 2 blobs. So it's like here and here. And that's kind of where the majority of your sounds kind of happen, more in your head than outside, but kind of in your head. And there's these kind of 2 blobs of sound right here. There's a few things that are like far right or kind of rear right or rear left. There's a few things that are in the center, but that's where the majority of the sound is delivered from. Soundstage, it's okay. I'm gonna have more to say in the comparison. I'm just gonna say it's okay though. It's not the best thing in the world. And yeah, I think that's where I'll leave that. And this will lead us into the conclusion. I'm gonna talk about whether or not you should upgrade from the T2 or the T2 Pro to the T3 in the actual comparison video. So if you're curious about that, stick around for that. And I'm only delaying that answer because I think it's relevant to the conversation we'll be having then. But as a headphone, as it stands in the market, is it worth the $70 price tag? I think the build quality and the mid-range performance do make it worth it, but you have a couple sacrifices. You have to deal with a little bit more forward treble than I would like. So if you tend to like a little bit more treble than I do, then you're gonna be fine. If you tend to like a little bit less treble than I do, then this is probably gonna be a little too hot for you. And then the bass response is not gonna be like the boldest, most slap in your face type of bass that you've ever heard. And if you're okay with that, and you just like that mid-range performance, this headphone is probably gonna be worth your money. But I'm gonna put links below where you can purchase it if you are really curious. But I really recommend sticking around for that comparison video and watching that for kind of the finalized answer, because you might actually be surprised by some of the results. And until the next video, my name is Josh, signing off.